that is not dominated by African Americans. I was the first Black female to start a granola business that was successful in the United States. No other African American woman had done what I had done. But I was never going to reach the success that I thought that I needed because I had to put somebody else in front. Because I would go to coffee shops, and the reason why I was never in stores is because the stores that I needed to be in would not be open. Because I'm the owner of the company. They needed somebody else.
And see, this is why we need the truth. All right. So I got a song stuck in my head. I know CeeLo is problematic these days, but I love CeeLo, Fool for You, right?
Yes.
I love that song. And to me, that describes the passion that I have for my business, right? And it's like, you know, that nobody can tell me nothing, right? And so we have this passion and this attachment, right? But if you are an entrepreneur, you are a fool. You're a fool for love. You are a fool because, you know, we still get married even though we know about 50% of marriages end in divorce. We still start businesses knowing 90% of businesses fail. Right. But we still keep going back. Because why? Better to have loved and lost. Because we are fools for love. But we can't be stupid fools for love. Because you can't let that kill you. And that is, to me, we need to know the truth. You need to know the truth. If you're dating somebody, you need to know the truth about them. And see, can you deal with it? The truth, 70% of entrepreneurs will never make more than $50,000 a year. And a lot of people are fine with that. And they're okay. Maybe it's their side business. Maybe it's they have a spouse. Maybe they've lived a job that makes, if you're able to keep a lot of that profit, $50,000 is nothing to sneeze at, right? So everybody's telling you need to be making six figures. 70% will never get above that. A very small fraction will ever get above $250,000. Now, there's things we need to be doing about that, but it's the truth. It's the truth that we know right now. If you are a coach, because I've been in the coaching industry, the average coach makes $20,000 a year. Okay, $20,000 a year. That means, what about our six-figure coaches? They're making $1 million. So what does that balance out to get to 20? The average is more like 5,000 a year. There's tons of people who say they're coaches and they're doing, and they may be doing beautiful work and enjoy their work and they're fine making 20,000, but they're going to be made to feel bad. You just got to know the truth and then decide what you want to do with it. And there's no shame in knowing, you know what, this is the truth. The truth is I'm going to have to do something I don't want to do. And it would be great if we could change society that wasn't true. I mean, like, stab me all over, right? It's a good white guilt this morning. But the point is, you got to know, and you have to function on the truth, not on the fantasy, not on the marketing pitch, but on your truth.
Which is where Side Hustle Diva came about, because once I realized that I was done with the granola, and it was not fun anymore. I hated doing it, and I was like, my family's tearing apart. For me, what became success was, how am I there for my children? So for me, the side hustle became real because I knew I had quit my job for the granola company, and within 30 days everything fell apart. But at the same time, my truth was I don't want to go back to work. I want to be home I want to be there when my kids get off the bus from school. I want to mop the floor, right? I want to do those things. So how do I do that? You side hustle. I know that I'm not going to make $1 million. I know I'm not going to make $100,000 a year. I know I'm probably not going to make $80,000 a year. But guess what? My truth is that I'm happy because I drive Uber. It's great. That became my side hustle, right? And I do other things on the side to make sure that I never had to go back to work to be home with my kids. I gave up the potential of having millions and millions of dollars because that's where my company was going. I was scaling to that point. I walked away from all of that because for me, my truth was that's not what I want. I almost had to reflect on it. Like the granola company was more of an experiment. Could Kortina do it? That's what it became for me. Could I do it? I wanted to know, could I start a business and have success? And some people will say, oh, you weren't, but I had success on my own level. And what that became for me was, great, we hit the goal. Now what? Now what do we do? No, the goal is not worth my broken home. The goal is not worth me sitting at home saying, I don't want to live anymore because as I'm scrolling through Facebook and all the people that have come into my world are telling me, you're not doing enough.
Well, question, and it may be stupid. People say there are no
not at breakfast.
Stupid people who don't ask them. And so, if you have such a good product, why can't you sell it to someone else?
Well, that's what we're in the process of doing. I'm going to sell the recipe. We're going to end up, but the company itself, I've already dissolved the company because of there's some other legal things that have gone on in the back scenes. Yeah.
Oh,
So
gosh,
the
that's
company
another
is dissolved.
transparency.
That's another truth.
Business,
It can get messy.
It can get real messy really fast when you bring certain people in. And when you start dealing with investors and marketing firms, all that stuff, it gets messy to where there's legal stuff going on, but I can't get into all of that. But at the end of the day, for me, the product was great. It was very successful. But the broken home, it just wasn't worth it. And my life is worth more. And that's why I said I have to stay off of. You see, I don't really post. I don't go on because I can't handle the content that's being put out. Because every time I go on, I'm back to, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
How is it that we put so much weight? Yeah, how do we put so much weight on that?
You know, because, and let's rewind here for a minute. Let's rewind all the way back to the beginning when we first decided to become entrepreneurs. One of the things I think that we miss out on and we're as entrepreneurs is that we don't sit down and ask ourselves the simple question, what am I willing to give up to get what I want? And that gets back to the truth. And so in that you set boundaries. And it's hard to set boundaries when you have other people interjecting you because then you lose control. Just like when I was coming here, I was late. I realized I left early. And I'm watching all these people driving crazy to get to a job that they don't own, that they will never own, and probably, one paycheck away from bankruptcy. And they go through this every day for 40 years, right, to earn 40%. And so I was so glad that I got out of that rat race. But one of the decisions that I made early on was the fact that what I would do and what I would not do. And family is important to me. Irregardless, family is important to me. And God first, family second, business third. And I just, and keep things in those perspectives. But so many of us get wrapped up into the moment of just jumping into something and not realizing what the consequences could possibly be. Because I don't know how many millionaires out here, or multi-millionaires, that are not happy. You talk about suicide rate, and look at it amongst the people that are, making that type of money. And so, I think once we sit back and so it's a done deal now with you, but so what are you gonna do with this? And Robert Kiyosaki spoke about that early on, how he made his millions and went bankrupt based on the fact of not having structure in his life. Okay, so you're a catalyst for people coming up and coming on.
But that's the thing. I did ask myself because you got a family. Before we made this transition, it was, what are you willing to give up? But when you start having to inject other people into it, because once the business gets so big, you can't do it on your own anymore. You have to bring other people involved, right? And you try to scout people as well as you can and vet them, but we never know people's ulterior motives and what they have in mind, okay? And then that's when the wrong people start coming into place. And it was a catalyst of so many different things that in the end, I was like, this is not fun. I'm not willing to give up this much to hopefully make $1 million or to get onto a store shelf. I wasn't willing to do that. And dealing with investors, that's a whole, I could write a whole book right now about what it's like to deal with investors and what that situation looks like. Because that in itself, you're living up to somebody else's expectation now.
And don't you think it's a slippery slope?
It's a very slippery slope.
Is that you start out and this is about permission too, is that you say, I want to have my business, why? Right? Here's why I'm in business, and I think this is so important. What am I willing to give up? What am I willing to do? And then you don't realize that you're moving. This is back to the pivot. You don't realize that you've just slid over here because the grind and you're going and things are happening fast. You've got to make decisions. And that's why you have to have those integrity checks. You have to check in. That's why you got to check in with truth and give yourself permission to take a step back. Be transparent with yourself. Transparency starts with yourself. And I love this idea of boundaries. You know, does anybody remember like the mimeograph? Like, well, I don't know some, you know, they still use them. Where you actually had like a transparency and you put it on a thing in the projector, right? And you could actually put layers on there. So, you know, this is how you put the first layer, and then you put another layer and another layer and another layer. Well, that's transparency for us too. There's layers of transparency. Not everybody needs to see in your business, right? That's why houses have more walls and windows, okay? And windows have curtains. So not everybody needs to be in there. But you do have to be transparent to yourself and to that intimate core. If you're with your spouse, your partner, your family, if you're business partners. If there's not transparency there, this is where you start, then you start getting off that core, right? You have this core and it's great, and you just sliding off because either you're over here trying to, you're trying to make money, you're trying to manage, you're trying to do this. And so I think this is the challenge. We start out and we think, I'm in control and I got it, and suddenly we just kind of go, how did I get over here? And this is just a question of how do we keep from drifting so far off?
I think the answer to that has a lot to do with I truly believe in mentorship, and I think that we don't have to do this alone. There's no real successful corporate company that is on NASDAQ who has done it like by themselves. They have board of directors. They have people that are pouring in. And I don't know why we think that we have to do business alone.
Yeah.
And you need mentors who can tell you where the bombs are, so you won't go over there where the bombs are. You kind of got to have people that are speaking life into you and that you can actually feel comfortable enough to be transparent and say, okay, well, this is what I'm going through, and help you navigate through that terrain. Because if you can't do this alone.
And that's hard though. Like for me, my industry, the food industry. Who in Atlanta do you reach
Trade secrets.
That's a tough one, right? Because Atlanta is a service. This city especially is service based. This is like when you get into food and product, you're in a whole new territory. And I felt like I was on this island by myself because while I had people that I could reach out to, who worked in the food industry, who could guide me to make the right decisions when it comes to the food industry specifically. And I think that was part of the issue as well. Was I felt so alone and so isolated because I didn't have that mentor.
How do you know who know them?
But see, and that was the whole goal, was to find somebody. But though, when you did get in that circle, because I did find that circle, they're so closed off. They don't want to tell you any information. They don't, because you're their competition now. We're now fighting. We may be indifferent. You may make cakes and I may make granola, but we're still fighting for the same store. We're still fighting to make the same million because you want people to buy your cakes and not eat my granola, vice versa. It is when I tell you the food industry is a cutthroat business and they do not help you. Nobody wants to give you any information because you're taking money out of their pocket.
And again, that's back to understanding the truth of an industry.
Yeah.
Do you understand how your industry works? Do you understand the saturation level in your industry? Who is your competition? Because guess what? Business is competition. And we can all be kumbaya and sit around and hold hands, and I believe in that. I believe that we are a community and we should be supporting one another, especially micro entrepreneurs. We got to get in there. But the capitalism is by definition competitive. And so you have to understand that that's a part of it. Are you able to do that? What are you willing to do? Do you understand that you've got to go into a competitive environment? And in fact, the kind of people who are drawn to do this kind of stuff, natural competitors. We like winning, right? We like getting A's, right? I mean, I get the gold, but as long as I get a bronze, I'm okay, right? When we are not able to do that, it makes us insane, right?
It does.
So it's very much like you're talking about going to college, and you're top of your high school class, and you go into a prestigious
I have a 24-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old daughter that literally, I told them yesterday, delete your accounts because the conversations that we have, it's like, what are you talking about? We don't shop there. We've never shopped there. Where's your retirement fund? But they're trying to live up to the Instagram pictures and the friends. And even then when my oldest daughter deleted her account, she said all of these people from high school started calling, like, where's your Instagram? She's like, you don't even talk to me. They're not friends.
Right.
But this is the kind of stuff that we're perpetuating too, and it's trickling down because that's what we're showing the younger generations too.
I want to just add a couple of things. Number one, thank you all for sharing, because it's beautiful that we're moving along and sharing our progress no matter which way it goes, because entrepreneurship is never one straight line. There's no A to B. And but yeah, social media, I think in my opinion, it is has become capitalistic, so it's become just like the other media from before, television, newspapers, and so on, that it tries to direct your attention and tries to give you a vision of who you should be and what you should be. So it's really easy to get caught up. And my solution to that is, of course, I only put out the things that I want to see myself. And unfortunately, some people have the same idea, but because they want to see nothing but craziness, they put out craziness. But I want to inspire my community. I want to inspire other artists, and so I only share the connections with those who also do the same. So I try anybody who starts on my feed putting things that are not about my spirit, not about my life. I'm like, yep, that's time for that person to go. Start shedding that out.
And so with this, I've spent a month trying to figure out how the heck do we even just define transparency, right? Because TMI, I mean, we live in a fake transparency time. Reality TV, that is fake transparency, okay? And then there's stuff like, I don't need to know about all your business. I don't need to see you wallow in your pain, or I don't need, right, there's a level of it. So to your point, I said, how can we define healthy transparency? So I said, okay, we gotta just say, what is healthy transparency? So I came up with sort of this Venn diagram, right? It starts with openness, right? So being open, you gotta be truthful, right? You gotta be truthful, and you gotta give yourself permission to be open. But that needs to overlap over here with humility, right? Because there is a humble brag is not humble, right? And so there is a thing that it's like where you either are telling a story because you are look at me, or like, woe is me, I'm a victim. That's not humility. Humility is I'm a human being, you're a human being, we're all human beings. And if you're speaking your truth from a humble place, good or bad, it's going to resonate. And then that final circle is boundaries. And so this goes back to this idea of boundaries. There's privacy, there's reputation, there's professionalism. So you need layers. Who do you share with? What content do you share? When do you share it? Who needs to know it? Who wants to know it? Who can benefit from it? And I'm like, if we use that for the messages we put out and then start looking at it, it's like, how do you filter, right? But I think it goes back to, does it make you feel bad? If it makes you feel bad, there's delete, you know, and because I'm yay social media. I get a lot of community out of social media, but I also have that love-hate with it, right? Is that it can make me want to stab myself, right? And so I think curating that content, if you're going to be there, you're going to have to be aggressive with it. And if it messes with your mind, don't go there. Right. And it's like, you know, I don't read the comments. There's things I don't participate in, right? Because you can be, I don't care who you are, and you read those comments, and it's going to devastate you. And so it's like, if it's tearing you up, give yourself permission to not be there. Yeah. But I think that we can, if we approach it from that way, what are we being transparent? Don't need to tell all of our business, but there's things that we can share that will, from this humble place with a boundary. And then if we're not getting that from other people, we all can spot a fake. Oh yeah.
Let me chime in on the social media part of it. Having spent 30 years trying to get everybody on social media. And I hear people all the time say they have to delete their account, and they got to not read this and not read that. I've been a blogger for 15 years. I don't have haters because it comes down to eras. You have to, just like you have to curate everything else, you have to curate the content on your stream. What's on your people say, well, you know, they're talking about this, but these are people you've initiated a relationship with. You don't see anything in social media unless you have fully consented and initiated that relationship. If, like you said, it makes you feel bad, and you know me, I said I don't want any, at the end of my day, I don't want any apologies, I don't want any side effects, and I don't want any disclaimers. If scrolling through your timeline, you start to feel side effects, like those commercials. It's like, it's gonna make you happy, but you're gonna want to cut off a limb, and you're gonna want to do. If you start to feel side effects, you take that person out. You might not want it, like good credit. You don't want to get rid of them, but you just unfollow them. Yeah, don't show me any. If Facebook has a link that says, don't show me anything else like this, or quiet that person. But then it comes back to giving yourself permission. I gotta say permission. I can't hang out with you no more online. You know, I can't read your stuff. Because you got to say yes to yourself. So you should not, if you're at a point where you have to do any kind of thing on social media, when it is something that you're not required to do it, you're interjecting yourself into these things. Give yourself permission to say, no, I can't do it. I've got people I've known forever. And I'm like, I can't. They're like, you see my post? No. I don't want to see your post. I love you. But when you get on there, you become a monster. You know, and then you tag me in it. It's like, no, you have to. Social media is a good thing. It is a very powerful thing. It's a great place. If you have a message or you want to hear a message, it's a place to find it. It is a place to put it out there and find it. So if you're at a point where you've got to, you at the end of the day, you got some side effects from your friends, your business partners, this thing that you wanted to do and you don't want to do it anymore, you got to ask yourself, why do you not want to do that? I don't want to get to a point where I don't want to host breakfast. You know, and unless I get to a table, I'm like, who are these people? You know, and then I have to go out and look. So, well, how am I selling? Is my tickets open to everybody? Wait a minute. You know, but you have to go back and evaluate. That's another thing. Even with the permission, the transparency and truth, you still got to evaluate it. Is it good? Because bad people can be transparent as well. Absolutely. And they usually will tell you. Somebody was asking me, I'm doing the coaching about people going into the gig economy where they want to drive Uber or Lyft. And one lady says, well, what if they act like this? I said, you leave crazy on the curb. Sure do. I said, somebody who's going to get in your car and act up, they will call you first. They will they'll request a ride, and then they will call you. And they have 50,000 questions. You just cancel the ride. You don't go ahead and pick them up and say, oh my God, they did everything predictable. Well, what's predictable? You already know how it's going to turn out.
Or they're the imposter, right? When you first let them into your life, it seems like this is going to be a great relationship.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Because you know, even in driving Uber, you get in my car, this seems like we're going to be great together. 5 minutes into the ride, you done got crazy.
They pivot. They flip.
Oh, we pivoted. It went real quick.
It works both ways.
It works both ways, right? I've been doing this in my life now because I've given myself permission to do this. As I do in Uber or Lyft, you get in my car and you pivot. Guess what? We're stopping. This is where you get out, and now I'm detoxing in my life too. For those that have pivoted because I thought that we're stopping here.
Right, but there's still an era of judgment, and it goes back to that era. And at the end of the day, you have to be able. This is one of the things we really don't want to do is go back and say I made the error, because if our paths actually cross and you're crazy, where did I go wrong?
That's true.
What did I do? How did I really let you in? What were the signs? There are signs everywhere.
Signs and omens, and this is why I keep going back to this idea of being a fool for love. And I was, because I was writing about my experience. The company I was with was Ladies Who Launch. And I fell in love. I mean, I was sitting in a conference. It was literally, I'm probably more in love with Ladies Who Launch than I was a man I've been with for a long time. And it was just like a moment. And I'm like, this is it. This is for me, right? And really fast, I'm moving in and I'm signing papers. And I was like, gosh, I signed papers and I took a name, Ladies Who Launch. And I started doing business under that and became known for that. In fact, a lot of people knew me.
That's how I know you.
And they didn't even know that it was a national company. They thought that I was Ladies Who Launch. And I felt like Ladies Who Launch, right? But I wasn't Ladies Who Launch. Somebody else had that name. And there were a group of us, that really were passionate about the company and we were doing good work. But the person who owned the brand, she got tired. She'd been doing it for 10 years. She put a lot of money into it. She was just done. And we tried all kinds of things to save it, right? We went into relationship counseling. We worked really hard, right? A group was offered to buy the company. She didn't want to sell it. She didn't want to sell the name.
Mm.
We could have everything, but we couldn't have the name.
Mm.
And my identity had gotten so smushed up in that. It was so difficult for me to unpeel it that when it was done, and I knew it was done, and I'm a person who's quite transparent. You probably gonna, you follow my stuff, you're gonna know about me, right? I couldn't talk about it. I didn't know how to tell people. I had a community of about 5,000 people, and in Atlanta, Georgia area, and I couldn't figure out how to tell them what had happened because I didn't know how to separate myself from that, right? Well, see, what do we say? When infatuation blinds you, right? But true love is not about being blind. And so we can get blinded in our businesses. We can get blinded just by our love for people. And it's literally in the brain. There's parts of the brain that shut down when it's a great study on love and hate. And they talk about the thin line between love and hate. It's really true. It's in the brain. The same areas light up. Only when it's love, it gets all fuzzy and you don't think straight. When it's hate, it's clear and cold. And so, not that we want to be in the hate part of our brain, but that love can make us make bad decisions, but that's okay, right?
No,
if you're smart and you get to a certain point, and you start to say, no, I can learn from the fact that I was blinded by this, right? And then I fell in love before I was smart. And the next time, I'm going to make a better decision. And then maybe that one doesn't work. Well, the next time, I'm going to make better decisions. And so we learn to read the signs. We learn to read the signs, and almost to the point that, you probably just pick up your phone and you go, no. I mean, you can get like a spidey sense, right? An intuition, 10,000 hours, right? And so, but to say that we never want to feel love is wrong. So yeah, we want to love what we're doing, but we learn to look for the warning signs, and we learn to change out of that part of the brain that makes us happy and excited and it feels good, and that's part of what keeps us going in business is it makes us feel good. Because when it quits making us feel good, we stop, right? We want to keep that, but simultaneously not be blinded by it, and then we can navigate these decisions, right? And we're going to make bad decisions. If anybody here has never made a bad decision, please talk to me outside afterward because I'd like to know how the hell you did it.